Do you see this? Beautiful, isn't it? Or this, maybe. Or maybe even this. Every one of these is unique and exquisitely crafted by God himself. Evidence of their design origin is plainly visible even down to the atomic level. Look at them on any scale, and the divine perfection is innately visible. The existence and properties of water itself is further evidence of God's divine guidance. It has so many forms and so many uses, it's like a universal screwdriver. And as you know, where there's a screwdriver, there must be a screwdriver manufacturer. Water's usefulness to us is proof that God exists, and that he wants us to make use of the environment that he gave us. Whether it's reservoirs full of water to drink, steam to power vehicles or industry, or ice cubes to cool our drinks, our lives are constantly intertwined with water. But what if I were to tell you there was another great use of water in our world? A use so profound that the dark cult of atheism has been working ceaselessly for centuries to hide it from you. Well, that is part of what I'm going to cover in today's video. But first, we need to go over the way the atheist cult has infiltrated the academic system to spread their murderous lies under the banner of so-called science. The beginning of the atheist assault on human knowledge seems to have come first from a child rapist and ritualistic blood drinker called Copernicus. In addition to the usual perversions of child rape, vampirism, and the molestation of farm animals, he also proposed the ludicrous and counterintuitive concept that the Earth was not the centre of God's creation, that the entire universe actually rotates about the sun. Now anyone who's ever looked at the sky can tell you that this is clearly insane. If this were true, the relative positions of the stars would change in the sky due to their axis of rotation being off-centre with respect to the Earth, and you can see this just doesn't happen. Also, the sun and the moon, they orbit our world once per day, and they have done ever since they were created, with the exception of the issue of Joshua 10:13, where God made the sun and the moon stand still in the sky until the enemies of Israel were defeated. If the sun and the moon weren't orbiting us, but instead were in some absurd astrological arrangement, how could this be visible even if it were true? Clearly the atheist has no idea what he's talking about. Which of course brings us neatly onto our second point, namely the laughable monstrosity of evolution. Atheist cultists proclaim that the story of our creation in the Bible is wrong, and that life on Earth magically poofed into existence from water and rocks. Now look, the answer to this is very simple. As humans, we're made extensively of carbon. Okay? Water are made of hydrogen and oxygen. No carbon there, folks. And rocks. Rocks are mainly silicon, oxygen, calcium, and a few other kind of minerals, but most notably, no carbon at all. So tell me this, how can you make carbon from non-carbon, atheists? How? The answer is, you can't. The whole idea is absurd. But, compared with this idiocy, the idea of a benevolent, loving God creating us all is by far the most rational explanation, especially when the end of days comes and you have to hold yourself to account to him. How do you think he'll react when you deny him and his work in front of him? Think on that before it's too late. Say the salvation prayer. Beg his forgiveness for your evil works today. Anyway, moving on. To support these idiotic and dangerous myths I've just described to you, the atheist needs to invent a ridiculous timescale, far beyond what God's word says is possible. So-called scientists say that the world is anywhere from 100,000 to millions of years old, which is obviously not possible. They claim the universe is trillions of times larger than biblical scholars know it to be. How do we know that the Bible is true and the atheists are wrong? Well, several ways in fact. Firstly, just by looking up the sky, you can clearly see that everything in it is very obviously revolving around us. To claim otherwise is to deny the evidence of your own eyes. Secondly, the book of Genesis, the Bible states that the earth exists under a firmament, or a structure of water crystals, which once held back the waters of the flood before they rained down on the earth in Noah's time. Modern researchers have demonstrated the truth of this, turning their instruments to the sky only to find that far and away the most abundant things out there are hydrogen and oxygen. What do you get if you combine hydrogen and oxygen? Oh, that's right, water. If you see water wherever you look, obviously this shows you're surrounded by a structure of water. Simple, really. Atheist cultists and blood ritualists make the claim that we can tell the distance we are from objects in the sky by measuring their so-called redshift. Ironic, isn't it, that blood drinkers would choose red as their colour, but anyway, I digress. Using redshift as a measure of the distance of objects in the sky is interesting, for a reason I'll come to later, but first I need to demonstrate the actual structure of our universe. In the centre, we have the Earth, firm and immovable. Above that, we have the atmosphere, air for us to breathe. Above that, we have the first of our water crystal structures. This is what biblical scholars know as the firmament, but what modern scientists know as the heliosphere. Set into this sphere of water crystal are the sun and the moon. This turns about us once per day, giving us our natural cycle of dark and light, as described in the Bible. Incidentally, this also explains why the moon landings were a hoax invented by the atheist conspiracy. It's impossible to land on the surface of the moon, let alone orbit it, given it's encased totally in crystalline water. Is there no lie too brazen for atheists? Moving on, there exists another larger heliosphere into which Jupiter and Saturn are set. Bible scholars and reputable scientists outside the atheist conspiracy have confirmed that this void between the two innermost heliospheres is where the waters of the flood of Genesis were before they rained down upon the Earth. Beyond this, we can see further heliospheres supporting the outer planets, before the final sphere containing the stars. Above this final opaque level is God's domain, somewhere we will only see after our time on this Earth is done. Strangely enough, this model is borne out by the physical evidence produced by the atheist cult, but they try and spin or equivocate it away to deny the truth of God. This brings us back to the atheist bloodied so-called redshift. Whenever a measurement is taken of the redshift of an object, it always turns out to be in one of a set of distance ranges, nowhere in between, just within certain ranges of distance. This is what atheist scientists call quantized redshift, or discrete redshift, saying that the redshift can only have certain values, but they have no idea how to explain it. Even though this is a devastating problem for science, the biblical model explains this perfectly. Observe. If objects are only observed as being within a certain set of distances of the Earth, then this means they all fit together as points on the surface of a sphere above the Earth. You can even construct a map of the heliospheres above the Earth using this method, but atheist scientists in their blind hatred of God refuse to acknowledge this. To me, it's a beautiful and elegant truth of the universe. A further elegant truth of the universe, as confirmed by science, is that we can observe the boundary where the domain of man meets the domain of God. Atheist cultists call this the cosmic microwave background. If you look far enough into the distance, you meet a region that is opaque to telescopes. Clearly, this is where God has set his boundaries for us. We're not meant to see into this region until the mortal phase of our existence is over. So, in conclusion, even though the physical evidence, even that which we can plainly see with our eyes, supports the biblical view of a young, specially created, earth-centered universe, the child murderers and paedophiles of the atheist cult are hell-bent on denying it in favour of their unsupported, godless lies. I advise you to critically examine everything these evildoers say and do. If you look deep enough, you can always find out the truth behind their claims. That's all I have time for today. Next time, I'll explore how the atheism cult's social engineering programs are destroying the fabric of Christian society as we know it. Until then, go with God. Thank you.